I now recognize myself for 5 minutes for questioning. And the first question goes to Mr. French, Mr. Nutkiss, and Mr. Johnson. Can you talk to me like the top two biggest digital threats to your industry, to the folks that you represent? The kind of threat actor, you know, whether it's a country or a specific individual or a person looking for a particular type of information.
From the pattern of breaches that we've seen in recent years, it's organized gangs of criminals using very sophisticated attacks, generally originating in Eastern Europe. I think that's the pattern that we've seen almost in every instance. And unfortunately, they have a very sophisticated method of doing this, and they wipe their tracks when they go in. So it's very difficult. They know what we're looking for, and it's very difficult for us to track them inside our systems and wipe them out.
Mr. Nutkiss?
So I think we see it in two ways. This is assuming, by the way, that we've detected it to begin with in the first place, but I think we found with the Chinese is they are there so long and so stealthy that the damage is substantial. So we find that when they get in, you're seeing much larger breaches, or we're not seeing them at all because people they're getting in and out. And then I think we're also seeing then from Russia more financial. So it's there's either some sort of extortion or financial. They're less methodical, so they leave a lot more trails. Those two for us are the ones we see the most.
Unfortunately, sir, we see them all. Of course, during the denial of service attacks, those were political, so those were from a nation state. From Chinese, we see the intellectual property thefts. And from the criminals, regardless whether or not they're attacking for economic gain, any set of breached data, it's going to be a bank customer that's at the end of the line for potential financial loss that we end up reimbursing. I think that we see blended threats, as I was talking about during my testimony. The thing that we become increasingly concerned about are threats that have the potential of manipulating or destroying data. And so it becomes, when does data disruption become data destruction, is what we spend a lot of time thinking about in terms of ensuring that we don't have data with the capacity to be manipulated, for instance. I agree that you hear about advanced persistent threats a lot. I think they're more irritating persistent threats. They're IPTs because they don't necessarily have a level of advancement. They just happen to be there for very extended periods of time, over time. One thing we see is a great deal of patience among all these perpetrators.
Excellent. Mr. Baitlick, in your opinion, some of those threats that they just outlined, I know your firm deals with all of the above threats. Is the federal government prepared to help the private industry and private sector in helping them fight these issues?
We've seen, Mr. Chairman, in recent high-profile breaches, the FBI ready to assist. I don't know of their ability to scale, however. I'm not sure if we were to send the Bureau to every one of the breaches that my company is working, whether they would become quickly overwhelmed. And that's one of the areas where this is different than a physical situation where you can call your local police and they're usually equipped to help you. We don't yet have a scalable government response to the problem.
And to Mr. French, Nutkiss, and Johnson, and very quickly, in what ways can the government better provide information to you, or what type of information should the government be providing to you to help protect your industry and the folks you represent?
The government can do two things, in our opinion. First of all, better cyber sharing legislation would help to facilitate more real-time exchange of information so that parties within the economy would be sharing with each other. The government has, through many of their systems, whether it's U.S. CERT or the Secret Service or FBI, done a very good job of working with, for example, Mr. Johnson's FSI-SAC, and the FSI-SAC is a very sophisticated means of flowing that information out. They use a traffic light protocol that shares that information with parties and partners in the industry, including retailers. So the information flow is there, but we could use some cybersecurity legislation.
Mr. Nuckless, briefly.
So I think for us, it's the format of the information. I think we'd like more information that's more valuable, accurate information, and we'd like it in a format that we can consume quickly. There's a lot of work involved, and a lot of it is information. You know, the analogy I use is Amazon online, Hulu Plus, and Netflix. We're getting the same information over and over again. We just really want the stuff we want. So specify what's really important, because if you end up with too much information, people get distracted. So we need good information, and we need it in a format that we can distribute it quickly.
Mr. Johnson, you have 30 seconds.
First of all, let the record show that I completely agree with Mr. French on this issue regarding information sharing. But secondly, I think liability protection is the other piece of that, because we need clarity in terms of what that liability protection for voluntarily sharing information is, and recognizing that proper privacy protections need to be in place and that data needs to be minimized. But I think that would greatly enhance the ability of us to have more adequate information sharing across sector particularly.